Coming up on Primetime News. On the last day of her three-day visit to China, President Park Geun-hye attends a ceremony to reopen the former headquarters used by Korea's provisional government during Japan's colonial rule. Wrapping up the visit, she also takes part in a joint business forum. We take a look at the significance of the economic ties between Seoul and Beijing. Over in Europe, the plight of dying and suffering children intensifies debate over how to respond to the ever-worsening migrant crisis. The United Kingdom vows to accept thousands more Syrian refugees. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello and welcome to Primetime News on this Friday, September 4th. I'm Hwang Ji-hye.
And I'm Daniel Choy. Thank you for joining us. We start off with what President Park Geun-hye had to say as she wrapped up her three-day visit to China today.
She reiterated that Seoul and Beijing stand against any provocations from Pyongyang that could escalate tensions on the Korean peninsula.
The president also said Korea reached an agreement with China to start discussions soon on the two Koreas' peaceful reunification.
She went on to say that the most definite answer to ending North Korea's nuclear weapons program is reunification, and that South Korea and China have made it clear to cooperate to reach that goal.
And on the final leg of her three-day trip, President Park Geun-hye attended a ceremony to mark the reopening of the former headquarters of Korea's provisional government during Japan's colonial rule.
Right, and there she emphasized that Seoul and Beijing share historical values of independence movement. Our Choi Yoo-sun follows this report from Shanghai.
Commemorating Korea's fight for independence from Japan's colonial rule, President Park Geun-hye participated in a ribbon-cutting ceremony at the old offices in Shanghai, once occupied by Korea's government in exile between 1926 and 1932. Here, the Korean president emphasized the significance of witnessing the reopening of the old headquarters on the 70th anniversary of Korea's liberation from Japan's colonization. She also expressed hope that the new and improved historic site will become an important educational venue for future generations. President Park also thanked the Chinese government and the city of Shanghai for their support, including some $600,000 that went into renovating these offices.
오늘 제 개관식은 우리 독립항쟁 유적의 역사적 의미와 가치를 한중 양국이 함께 공유하고 있다는 것을 보여주고 있습니다.
President Park also had a chance to meet the descendants of Korea's independence fighters of the colonial period, like Lee Seung-man, the first head of the provisional government who would later become Korea's first president, and Kim Gu, the last head of the government in exile. In a visitor's book, President Park wrote that she will uphold the independence fighters' patriotism and achieve a peaceful reunification of the two Koreas. At a meeting with Koreans residing in Shanghai, President Park said their bridging role between Korea and China, specifically Shanghai, have led to great economic cooperation and exchanges of people. Highlighting China's role in resolving the North Korean nuclear issue and bridging a peaceful reunification, she asked the residents to become civilian ambassadors to promote Seoul's unification efforts. Choi Yoo-sun, Arirang News.
We talked about the ceremony to remember the sacrifices made to make Korea what it is today.
And now we'd like to shed light on the history and legacy of the Provisional Government of Republic of Korea. Park Ji-won brings us this story.
Korea's provisional government was established in 1919 in Shanghai as a government in exile, 9 years after Japan's forceful annexation of Korea in 1910. Its establishment followed a massive nationwide independence movement against Japanese rule the same year. Prior to 1919, 7 provisional governments had been formed in various regions, including Seoul, the Chinese city of Jilin, and Vladivostok in Russia, but they decided to unite as one provisional government in Shanghai to rightfully represent Korea and facilitate the creation of independence movements. But due to the constant threat of discovery, the provisional government had to keep changing locations. During the years it was active, the exiled government fought hard to achieve liberation for Korea, both on the diplomatic front and by staging attacks on the occupying Japanese. But as diplomatic appeals to the international community largely failed, internal factions emerged. For years, Korea's provisional government was a turbulent mix of liberals, socialists, and nationalists with opposing views on which approach to take. For example, Lee Seung-man, the provisional government's first president and the man who later became South Korea's first president in 1948, emphasized diplomacy targeting Western powers. On the other hand, nationalist Kim Gu, the final president of the provisional government, believed the country could only be taken back through military force. Their opposing views continued even after Korea's liberation. After the unconditional surrender of Japan and Korea's liberation in 1945, due to a deepening Cold War politics, the United States and the Soviet Union started to temporarily administer Korea by dividing the nation in two, and the provisional government was ignored. Both Lee and Kim were strongly opposed to a foreign trusteeship over Korea. But Lee hoped to have a separate government in the South to avoid the influence of communism. Kim Gu pushed hard for a unified government until his assassination in 1949. Although the role of the provisional government was ignored after Korea's liberation, its legacy remains. It was the provisional government that first proclaimed Korea to be a democratic republic, ending Korea's traditional monarchy system that had ruled the country for thousands of years. The preamble of Korea's constitution also states that it succeeds the cause of the provisional government born of the March 1st independence movement of 1919. In another demonstration of the legacy left by the government in exile, South Korea's full name in Korean, 대한민국, and its national anthem, 애국가, were first officially adopted by the provisional government. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Going back to Thursday's Victory Day celebrations in China, North Korea's Choi Ryong-hae reportedly failed to hold one-on-one talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping.
And with the apparent souring of ties, attention now turns to whether North Korea will launch a ballistic missile in October. Kim Hyun-bin tells us more.
The North Korean leader's right-hand man and secretary of the Central Committee of North Korea, Choi Ryong-hae, failed to hold one-on-one talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping during the 70th anniversary ceremony of China's World War II victory. Choi also most likely failed to deliver a handwritten letter from Kim Jong-un. It remains unclear whether Choi spoke to other Chinese government officials during his stay, but experts say it's unlikely the message was delivered since no meeting with the Chinese president took place. Some analysts say Choi was sent to improve Beijing-Pyongyang relations, while others say the North Korean leader's decision not to attend suggests anti-Chinese sentiment. Meanwhile, there's speculation North Korea could launch a long-range missile during the 70th anniversary of the Korean Workers' Party in October. A website specializing in North Korea, 38 North, says satellite imagery has detected movements of structures of the launch pad designed for transferring rocket components. The website added that given the low amount of activity, it is unlikely North Korea could launch a long-range rocket in the coming weeks, as launch preparations including fueling and pressure testing requires weeks of preparation. North Korea has enhanced its ballistic missile capabilities, including a 2012 launch that successfully put a satellite into orbit. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Wrapping up her three-day visit to China, President Park Geun-hye took part in a Korea-China business forum in Shanghai, its commercial capital.
And to delve deeper into what could be another turning point in the economic relations between the two countries, we turn to Dr. Kim In-cheol at KOTRA's Foreign Investment Ombudsman. Thanks for being here, Doctor.
I'm glad to be here.
So a record number of business-related officials are traveling with President Park Geun-hye this time in hopes of creating new business opportunities in China. How do you evaluate the latest visit in terms of economic cooperation between the two countries?
Well, I would simply assess that President Park's visit to China this time will make a lot of tremendous contributions to. They agreed to have the FTA go into effect as soon as possible. They also agreed to aggressively promote the Eurasia Initiative project.
Well, you mentioned the FTA between China and Korea, and of course, Korea is a very export-reliant country, so we should be expected to enjoy a lot of perks with this FTAs, right, Professor?
Right. Yeah, I mean, two economies are very, big ones. I mean, if the two economies are closely, working together, so we expect that the trade volume and investment to increase significantly.
But currently, China is going through a sluggish growth, and with what strategy or measures can Korean companies eliminate such uncertainties?
Okay, to eliminate, we know that the real world is full of uncertainties. To eliminate such uncertainties, the strong state leadership is absolutely necessary. Economic or business forums, and explaining the Korean products and holding the expos and forums for Chinese people. Fortunately, Chinese people have developed a strong taste and preference for Korea's products and services. So we need to take a more aggressive marketing strategy to meet the demands of the Chinese people. Korea is the fifth largest shareholder of the AIIB, and I'm sure there will be a lot of benefits associated with the construction work. Shared information, business information, between the two countries. That way we can reduce much of uncertainties.
Is there any way we can utilize the Korean wave to boost trade between the two countries?
Yeah, well, actually, they hold the entertainment, shows and investment, investor relations show. I was in Shanghai about a week ago, and I attended the Korea Brand and Entertainment Expo, where young Korean boys and girls were dancing and singing in a huge exhibition hall, which was fully packed with excited and enthusiastic Chinese fans. So that way we can introduce more fully about the Korean products and services that are popular to or could be popular for the Chinese consumers,
especially to the young ones. It's a very promising industry, and of course,
yes.
Could you point us how certainly industries like related with Hanwha, but other small and mid-sized businesses in Korea should be able to benefit greatly with closer economic cooperation with China.
Right. I mean, as I observe their behavior, they are really excited about Korea's products and services, such as cosmetics and clothes and small home appliances and health care and medical treatment. So these products and services mostly are produced by the small and medium-sized firms. So these are the industries that we need to focus on and further study to support these small and medium industries.
All right, thank you so much for your time today, Dr. Kim. We hope to see you again in the studio.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe says he truly wishes to hold a summit with his South Korean counterpart in time for an upcoming trilateral meeting between Seoul, Tokyo, and Beijing this fall. According to Japan's Kyodo news agency, Abe made such remarks on Yomiuri TV Friday. The Japanese leader also called Korea an important neighbor and economic partner. He added that the international community wants the two neighboring countries to discuss and build cooperative efforts in various sectors, including politics, foreign relations, and economy. If the summit goes through, it will be the first meeting between President Park and Prime Minister Abe. It's been more than 3 years since Korea and Japan held a summit.
A handful of emerging markets have suffered unprecedented drops in their stock markets and currency following China's worse-than-expected economic slowdown and devaluation of its currency. Korea also struggles with market volatility. Our Han Da-eun has the details.
China's economic woes are weighing down on the Korean government's outlook for growth next year. During an interview with the Wall Street Journal in Turkey on Friday, Seoul's finance minister Choi Kyung-hwan said, factoring in China's slowdown, Seoul has revised its growth outlook for 2016 to 3.3%, down from its previous forecast of 3.5%. But it kept this year's projection unchanged at 3.1%, saying Seoul can achieve growth in the 3% range if the country succeeds in reviving the economy through structural reforms. Choi also said he expects a soft landing for Beijing and that Seoul will adapt to the challenges with pumped-up approaches. Heightened focus on trade, such as boosting exports in the services sector, would be one of them, and making optimum conditions with a bilateral free trade deal both countries aim to soon ratify. Experts have touted the resiliency of the Korean economy following the 2008 global financial crisis compared to other emerging economies. They've also emphasized how the country does not depend as heavily on commodities or raw materials.
Considering our market size, foreigners' cash outflow was not as severe as it was in other Asian countries.
Korea's financial health has improved, with its short-term debt remaining in the 30% range of total foreign borrowings, down from 50% range in 2008. Seoul's foreign reserves ranks 6th in the world, backed by its streak of current account surplus, and serves as a safety net for its economy. On the U.S. Fed's possible rate hike later this year, Seoul's finance minister said that it is unlikely Korea will see massive cash outflow as investors now realize Asia's 4th largest economy is relatively safer than other markets. Handan, Arirang News.
In other news, the number of passengers traveling on international flights rebounded for the first time in 12 weeks. Korea's transport ministry said Friday that the number of passengers traveling overseas had been on the decline since the outbreak of MERS in early June, when it dropped 12%, followed by a 15% drop in July. However, the country recovering from the MERS outbreak, August figures seem to indicate an improvement. The number of passengers flying on domestic flights had already increased mid-July, posting 16% increase in August on year.
For a while now, it has been common for Asian arts professionals to use Western arts and philosophy as guidelines for their work rather than their own Asian roots. But Korea's southwestern city of Gwangju is trying to change that with the opening of the Asian Arts Theater. Kim Ji-yeon reports.
Gwangju, known as the Korean City of Light, is expected to soon become a global platform for contemporary art. And at the center of it stands the 13,000 square meter Asian Arts Theater, which opens on Friday. With a lineup of some 40 productions over the next 3 weeks, the arts venue aims at becoming a space where participating artists can communicate and understand the influence their Asian identities have on their work. Among the performance pieces stand out Paling. Based on Malaysia's 1955 Baling talks, performers reenact the time when national leaders tried to resolve the country's division, failing to do so and leading to the creation of Malaysia and Singapore. Mark Tae says the Korean audience can easily relate to his work as a similar scenario took place in Korea's history.
And it's interesting to see how in a slightly different part of the world, our leaders were making similar choices. The next piece I want to do is called The Complete Future of Malaysia, which is into the future. And we would be very happy if we have the opportunity, if we get invited again to do it at the Asian Cultural Center, the Asian Arts Theater. And also a project that's asking lots of pertinent questions about, Asia right now and what it means and the many things that it could mean.
Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News, Gwangju.
And now for our international headlines, we turn to our Bruce Harrison at the News Center.
Today's focus, European leaders search for an answer to the refugee crisis. Guatemalans celebrate the resignation of their president, and a woman in the U.S. chooses jail over issuing marriage licenses to gay couples.
Well, Bruce, first of all, hundreds of thousands of people are risking their lives as they seek refuge in Europe. And I understand they are not asking for much nor looking for much.
Daniel, yeah, most of these people just want a safe place to live, work, and raise their families, but their fates are uncertain as they wait for decisions from the governments of the countries they're desperately trying to reach. Our Ji Myung-gil has more.
As the humanitarian crisis deepens, EU leaders seem unable to agree on a solution. Some countries are welcoming migrants while others are planning to build walls to keep them out. Hungary has been building a wall for weeks and says over 2,000 refugees still arrive in the country every day. Its plans are to revise its migration laws and deport those without proper documentation.
Hungary did everything which was possible in order to keep the regulations. We create just now in the Hungarian parliament a new package of regulations. We set up a physical barrier, and all these together can provide a new situation in Hungary and in Europe from the 15th of September.
Migrants remain in a standoff with police at a Budapest train station. They crammed onto a train Thursday only to learn it had been ordered to stay put. The desperate migrants have refused to get off, demanding transportation to Germany.
They bring us here. We don't know why.
No camp.
We don't need to stay on the camp, and we don't need to stay in Hungary.
European leaders are trying to develop a coherent response to the crisis, which took on new urgency after the photo of a 3-year-old drowned Syrian boy shocked the world. The United Kingdom has decided to take in thousands more Syrian refugees, and France and Germany have called for Europe to share the burden of the swelling number of people fleeing violence in the Middle East and Africa. Several EU countries are opposed to a mandatory quota of refugees for each EU state, and for some nations it's about more than quotas, it's about who. Hungary in particular has said it's against accepting a large number of Muslims into the country. Ji Myung-gil, Arirang News.
The former president of Guatemala is being held in jail while a court weighs charging him for corruption. Ex-President Otto Perez Molina was locked up just hours after the Guatemalan Congress approved his resignation, which he submitted after a warrant had been issued for his arrest. Prosecutors allege Perez was involved in a customs scam in which importers used a phone hotline to avoid paying customs duties in exchange for bribes. Perez has maintained his innocence.
We are here in good faith. I had the resources, not just now, but also 15 days ago or a month ago to have fled if I had wanted to. But as I've always said, I will respect the due process.
Perez could not have been re-elected at this Sunday's presidential vote under Guatemala's constitution. He was elected in late 2011 after promising to fight crime and corruption. Pockets of resistance against gay marriage in the U.S. have been popping up this summer. A woman in the U.S. state of Kentucky has been sent to jail over her attempt to stop same-sex unions. For months, Rowan County Clerk Kim Davis has refused to issue marriage licenses to any couple, gay or straight, since a ruling by the U.S. Supreme Court allowed same-sex marriage under the Constitution. A U.S. district judge found Davis in contempt of court for denying the licenses. Deputy clerks in Davis's office began issuing the licenses Friday, even though she said she had authority to restrict them. The judge warned the deputies they'd be back in court if the licenses weren't issued. Davis cited her faith as an apostolic Christian for denying the licenses. As she was questioned in court by her attorney, she said marriage is a union between one man and one woman. And that's your international news for now. See you next week.
It was a hot afternoon. Highs in Seoul rose to 30.7 degrees Celsius, but the temperature should fall again tomorrow, going down to 27 and 28 by Sunday. And it's going to be a rainy Saturday for the southern parts of the Gyeongsang-do and Jeju-do provinces, with up to 40 millimeters of rainfall. In the meantime, sudden rain is in the forecast for the capital area, with chances of lightning, and that pop-up showers are expected to fall in the morning and in the afternoon, so keep these conditions in mind if you plan to be outdoors on Saturday. On that note, let's take a closer look at the readings for tomorrow. Daily high here in Seoul and Busan will get up to 27, while Daegu and Gwangju top out at 26 and 28. And as for the other regions, Daejeon and Jeju Island will see a high of 27, while Dokdo rises to 22. Though Sunday is shaping up to be a dry one under mostly to partly sunny skies in store across the nation. So hope you get to enjoy those awesome early autumn conditions on Sunday. But that's all for this week. Good night.
And we've come to the end of our newscast. Thank you so much for staying with us.
We'll be back same time next week. Goodbye for now.